I've photographed this coastline before. Boats at anchor, sunsets over Bamfield that did exactly what good coastal light is supposed to do. I know this water. I thought I knew this trip. This year is different. In a few months, I'll begin a new life in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. For the first time in 11 years, I won't make the long drive or stand on that ferry deck. I'll board a small regional flight out of Kelowna, land in Nanaimo, and drive with Jeff to Port Alberni before we launch. The destination hasn't changed. The journey has. And it has me asking a question I'd never had to ask before. What happens to a photographer's relationship with a place when even the way he arrives has changed, and he no longer knows if he'll ever come back? There's a small ritual that repeats itself every year before we chase halibut, instead of staying inside the inlet for salmon. Someone checks the marine forecast, wind speed, wind direction, swell height. The ocean has never consulted us once. Some years it lets us out, some years it doesn't. I used to think that it was simply part of fishing. This year, it feels like an entire trip compressed into one honest truth. Some things simply aren't up to us, no matter how carefully we've planned. Here's the assumption I walked in with. I assumed the camera would do what it always does on this trip. Ride along, wait for the moment, capture whatever coastline light Bamfield decides to give us, the way it has every year I've made this crossing. But somewhere between Port Alberni and Kildonan, I realized that assumption wasn't holding. I wasn't thinking about composition. I was thinking about how many more summers I might get to sit across from Jeff in this boat. I was grateful that Chris was there too, a friend who has shared enough of these crossings to understand what this trip has quietly become to mean. I was wondering whether Paul's cabin would still feel like a home once an ocean and half a continent sat between us. That isn't a technical problem. That isn't a settings problem. That isn't a gear problem. It's the question that every photographer eventually faces. What happens to the moment when you're living matters more than the photograph you're trying to make? For the first time on this trip, I wasn't reaching for better light. I was trying not to miss the life unfolding inside it. That was a different way of seeing, and it quietly changed the reason I brought the camera in the first place. There are three things this trip has reminded me of. I think they reach well beyond a boat in the Port Alberni Inlet. The first is this. Presence cannot be manufactured by gear. I have the same camera in my bag that I've carried on every one of these trips. It will do exactly what it's always done. It will faithfully record whatever I place in front of it. What it cannot do is decide whether I'm truly present. A lot of photographers quietly believe the next camera or the next lens will somehow help them feel more connected to a place. It won't. Presence is a decision you make before you even lift the lens. No camera has ever made that decision for anyone. Second is permission. For years, I believed if I didn't photograph a moment, I'd lose it. I don't believe that anymore. Some of the best moments on this trip will never exist as photographs. They'll exist only in memory, and somehow, that doesn't make them smaller. It makes them mine. The third is understanding what the camera is actually for. Not possession, witness. A camera doesn't let us keep a moment. Nothing can. What it does is invite you to pay closer attention while the moment is still here. That attention is the real craft. The photograph is simply the evidence that you are paying attention. I want to be clear about something it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean leaving the camera in the bag to prove some point. It means bringing it out because the moment has earned it, not because habit tells you it should. The gear was never the obstacle, and it was never the answer. It's simply a tool, waiting for the photographer to decide why he's picking it up. Presence before gear, permission before obligation, witness before possession. Those are the three things I hope to carry onto Amigo this year, alongside my camera. A few years ago, near Bamfield, the light broke across the water the way it always seems to. Without thinking, I raised the camera. It was habit, more than intention. I made the photograph, and technically there was nothing wrong with it. The light was beautiful, the composition worked. It's still a photograph I'm proud of. But when I look at it now, I realize I don't remember much about standing there. I remember the photograph. I don't remember the moment that it gave me. The following year, the same kind of light arrived. This time, I waited. For almost a minute, I did nothing except watch. No camera, no settings, no urgency. Just the coastline doing what coastlines have always done. When I finally raised the camera, the photograph was quieter, less dramatic, maybe even easier to scroll past. But I remember making it. I remember Jeff's voice behind me, laughing that I was wasting good light, and that we should already be fishing the evening bite. I remember smiling and deciding he was wrong. That's the composition that matters to me now. Not two photographs, two versions of the photographer who made them. Same coastline, same camera, same pair of hands. One photograph from habit, the other came from intention. And years later, I know which one taught me more. So here's where I actually am. My duffel bag is packed. The camera is in another bag, the way it's been every summer for the past 11 years. In a few days, I'll board a small regional flight out of Kelowna, land in Nanaimo, meet Jeff, and we'll drive to Port Alberni before launching Amigo towards Bamfield. The trip is familiar, but I won't be. I still don't know if this will be the last time I make the crossing with these friends. And I'm not going to pretend I've made peace with that, because I haven't. What I do know is who I want to be when I step onto that boat. Someone who can put the camera down without feeling like he's missing something. Not a photographer chasing photographs, a photographer paying attention. And pick it back up because the moment deserves to be remembered, not because habit tells him to. If this trip gives me one unforgettable photograph, I'll be grateful. If it gives me none, but gives me 3 unforgettable days, I'll be grateful for that too. Because somewhere along the way, I realized that wasn't settling for less. It was finally understanding what I'd been coming here for all along. If the idea of presence before gear resonates with you, my ebook Intentional Landscape explores these decisions in much greater depth. You can find it at steveaustin.ca. And if this episode gave you something to think about, I'd love to have you along for what's next. Like the video and subscribe. Over the coming months, I'll be documenting not only photography, but the process of building a new life in Southeast Asia and Vietnam. I'd love for you to come along.